Welcome back to Redefining Love. I am your host, Tara Portelli. And on today's episode, I want to share with you guys, how did I come to this place of using psilocybin? What is my story? How did I even find psilocybin? I know there's so many of you out there who are hearing more and more about psychedelic therapy for mental health. And this was never something that I personally sought out. I had heard a lot about it. I had heard about the benefits, but I never really saw myself as someone who would need a therapy like this. I was managing myself well. I was managing my life, my mental health. But the truth is, I had no idea how much I was actually struggling until I went into a psilocybin experience. And I'm going to tell you guys how this medicine found me. I never sought it out. I was never somebody that even really loved using cannabis. Actually, if anything, I really steered away from it. It wasn't for me. I've never really been a drug user. I don't look for that. I barely even drink. So this was something that was a big deal for me. And to have the trust and the faith to go into the experience was a big step forward for me. But am I ever glad that I did that? Because this experience has literally changed my life. And I want to share with you a little bit about what I was even struggling with, because I didn't even really understand that my struggle was my baseline. So, what does that mean? It means that sometimes what happens for us is that we are so used to operating in a fight or flight mode, or like a stress response in our body, depending on our upbringing, depending on what you've been through in your life, what your career is. I was a paramedic. I mean, we're constantly in overdrive. Our entire sympathetic nervous system is always on the go, and you become used to functioning at that level. And so for some of you out there who maybe you've had trauma in your life, or you came from some type of domestic abuse or violence in your childhood, or even, just angry parents. Things like that could really cause a lot of havoc on your nervous system. And so if what that happens with that is that becomes your new normal. So you are not used to what calm could feel like. And actually, when you feel the calm, you wonder, is something going to happen to me next? Like, what's going to happen? You're always on guard, and you're just waiting for the shoe to drop. Or the way that your brain works is always in a negative state of mind. And I had obviously come from a place with my career where I was constantly on overdrive and in that stress response, but also from my childhood, there was a lot of domestic violence, addictions, and things like that. And so as a kid, I remember being curled up in a ball on my bed at a very young age, listening to the fighting or the noise that would happen and would play all this loud music and smashing and banging. And as a kid, you were really scared because the people that are supposed to protect you are what are causing you to feel unsafe. And so I would constantly be in that state. And so I just got really good at navigating that as my baseline. And so when I came to find psilocybin, it helped me to recognize that in myself. It helped me to understand how much I was living in fear, how much of my life I was living in fear, and how much I wasn't actually living. And so maybe you guys can relate to this. So, as a person, I was a people pleaser. I always wanted to do the right thing. I was always scared of getting in trouble because there was so much anger in the house. And so that carried forward into my relationships. So before psilocybin, I was in my marriage. I had decided to leave my marriage. That was a very difficult decision, because this person was really important to me and was my best friend. But I didn't feel that I was able to thrive in the relationship for many reasons, and things just came to a head, and I had to make that choice. And so when I left the relationship, I then decided that I was going to take some time to do some self-discovery, some things I've never done before. Spend some time with me, build a relationship with myself. And so that all began by going to Tulum, Mexico in 2018. And this trip for me was a very cathartic, healing experience that I was going to embark on. And I was just going there with no real plan. I just wanted to let my life unfold for me, let my trip unfold. And I was trying to allow the universal flow of life to show me the direction. And let me tell you, did that ever happen? It actually, that particular trip in 2018 completely changed my life. And this is why. So I was probably about a few days into my trip when I was walking down on the beach and I had my DSLR camera and I was taking really beautiful pictures. And first off, I want to say, like, this was my first time truly traveling alone. And that in itself was an obstacle that I was able to overcome. And also the fear around being a woman, being in, a country that's all over the news all the time with all kinds of things happening. But I think that, it's just a matter of being aware, knowing your surroundings. Don't spend your time in bars at night and don't hang out in dark alleys. And so that particular trip led to 6 years off and on living in Mexico. So I will tell you right now that, yes, of course, it's a developing country and there's things that are happening there that may not be happening here, or maybe they are, but just in a different way. So I've never felt unsafe there. I've always felt good, and I just always was well around aware of my surroundings, but again, never felt unsafe. So I just wanted to say that as a woman traveling in a country that's developing, as I'm walking down the beach, I see this kiteboarder. Now, kiteboarding was something I'd never really witnessed before, so it was kind of cool to watch. And I saw this particular person doing all of these tricks in the air, and I felt really pulled to take pictures of them. So I was taking these pictures, and the shots I was getting were incredible, like absolutely amazing. And I just had this feeling that I was going to sit down on the beach and they were going to come in because I needed to get these photos to this person. And at the time, I had been asked to write a travel piece for a magazine. So I thought, well, this would be amazing. I could take these shots and I could put it in the travel piece. So I sit down on the beach, and almost like I had willed it to happen, this person swoops in on their kiteboard and like looked at me, and I was like, hey, like, I have these really great shots of you. Like, I really want to get these to you. And I think they're amazing. And he was like, yeah, absolutely. He's like, here's my email. I saw you with the camera. Thank you for taking the pictures. Let's connect. So I sent him an email and with the photos. And then I happened to have my email that I sent the pictures from was my blog at the time. So I used to write a health and wellness blog about medicinal mushrooms, not psychedelic. So it was about like how medicinal mushrooms and foods can help support our health. So it was called the nude mushroom. So exposing food for what it can do for our bodies. And when he saw my email handle, he wrote me back and he said, "You're the nude mushroom. Mushrooms saved my life. I think we were meant to meet. Let's meet up at my business and I'll tell you my story." So the next day I woke up and I went and met him at his business. So when I heard his story about how he had suffered from suicide headaches for 38 years and he had been struggling so much, and psilocybin was the only thing that could stop the headaches. I don't know if you guys are familiar with suicide headaches, also called cluster headaches, but these headaches can be so intense that they can last anywhere from 3 days to like an entire month. And so he had to warn his neighbors, just so you know, I have a headache. So if you hear me screaming in the night, it's not because something's happening to me. I just cannot handle the pain. And so they do say that it is one of the most painful experiences you could ever have before death. So imagining that you have a drill in your eye and it's going around and around. And so, I mean, that's pretty graphic, but that was the description that was given to me by this man about what the headaches felt like for him. And he had tried everything. And then he came across psilocybin. And psilocybin mushrooms are the ones that were able to help him to completely let go of his headaches, not have to experience them anymore, and to have a quality of life again. And so, since that experience for him, he has been helping people all over the world with cluster headaches and suicide headaches. So, he shared his story with me. I was fascinated. Again, like I wasn't actually in the place where I was looking for psychedelics for myself. I wasn't even considering it. It was just something that was not on my radar. And he's like, "Here, I want to give you these as a gift," and hands me mushroom chocolate a day from his office. And I was like, okay, so now I have these mushrooms. What am I going to do with them? So I really sat on it and really thought about, like, is this something that I want to experience? So I had written him and I'm like, listen, like, what do you want me to do with these mushrooms? And he's like, I think you should take them. And I was just like, okay. I did have a good feeling. He had really good vibes. I felt confident in my own intuition at that time. And I was like, okay, so maybe I'm going to have this experience. So I sat on it. I thought about it. I decided that, what, obviously this has happened for a reason. And maybe I should consider actually having this experience. I'm here to find myself, to explore myself, to explore my own, like, relationship with me. And maybe this is something that's been shown up for a reason. So one other thing that he said to me was, it's peaceful, loving medicine. And there's not enough there to take you to the dark side. And I was like, okay, that sounds amazing. I think I'm going to give this a go. So I set it up so that I was in a safe space, and I decided to go through the experience. And, first of all, I should tell you that I had decided to go and bike 9 kilometers to this particular beach that I was told by one of the hotel managers was the most beautiful beach in Tulum, and that for the price of a cerveza, you could have one of these beautiful day beds on the beach. And he's and so I was like, well, I'm going to go there because I was told about that. So I feel like that feels very synchronistic. So I decided to bike to the beach, this beach that the hotel manager had told me about, 9 kilometers. And I thought to myself, if this space doesn't feel right, if the place doesn't feel right, then I'm not going to have this experience. So I biked there, and I got there and I walked through the path to the beach. And it felt like this place was made for me. Everything about it was something that I would create. It actually reminded me of my wedding on the beach. It was very bohemian. There was like lanterns everywhere. There was pillows all over the beach. It was just like almost like a replication of my wedding. And I'm like, this feels very, very aligned. Like I intuitively feel like this is the right experience for me. So I set it up with someone that I trusted, and I decided, and the great thing about this was at the time, Tulum was very, very quiet. It was not on the map yet. And so it was like nobody was on the beach, and it was so beautiful. And the sun was out and the ocean waves were crashing against the shore. And I was just sitting there, and I felt so supported. I felt so safe. And I was like, I went for the experience. And I will tell you that the first thing that came up for me in that experience was feeling so loved and so supported by the universe, God, whatever you believe. I felt like I was on a cloud and I was being lifted up. What I kept hearing was, you are so loved. You are so loved. You are so supported. You've always been loved. You've always been supported. And for me, hearing those words felt so safe, and so, I just felt like the most love I'd ever felt, because obviously growing up in a house where there's so much anger, so much violence, you don't feel safe, you don't feel loved. And so this was such an empowering, beautiful experience to go through. Not only that, it showed me in my life where maybe I had stayed in situations too long that weren't right for me. It showed me my path forward. It showed me and helped me to feel this love and compassion for myself that I had never experienced before. And this was what I realized was the missing piece that I didn't have. That is why I was a people pleaser. That is why I was always seeking validation outside of myself. It's why I always fell into relationships and I didn't use discernment and I didn't filter people through. I just was like, oh, I'm getting love and attention from this person, and like we have a great connection, and not are these people in alignment with my own values. I didn't really even think about what my values were and think that maybe I should keep that as a standard for my life so that people can meet me there. But I didn't have that confidence. I was very insecure. I was very uncertain about my life path, where I was going. And here I am in this experience that lasted 4.5 hours, maybe not even 4.5 hours. And everything in my life just made so much sense. I understood, you know, finally, like, where am I going, and what is my purpose here on earth? And let me tell you that once you start to understand your own purpose, and that can unveil itself in many ways, psychedelics is just one of those ways, but it's about following the thing inside of you that means something really, oh, that really means something to you. That's the driver, the passion, what fuels you, which pushes you forward. And it's this little spark inside of you that you have to continuously feed. And by doing that, you can really get clear on where you're going. You just have to do the things that make you feel good. And I know that sounds super crazy because we've been taught such a different way of living our lives. But what I realized in that moment on the beach when I was doing this experience, not only did I feel so much love for myself, but for the people in my life, for nature, for everything that has happened to me, like so much difficulty, but also so many blessings. And the difficulties were what helped me to grow or to expand or to choose differently or to choose myself for the first time. And so now I'm feeling this overwhelming feeling of self love and understanding that this is such a healing experience. I felt such a deep calling to help people that are struggling with their mental health with this medicine, knowing that this is a tool that might not be for everybody, but for a lot of people to have this experience, to have this understanding of their own life experience, to be able to connect with love in such a deeper way for themselves. This is such a powerful transformational experience that I wanted to be a part of the movement to move this forward. And this comes from the place of having family that struggles with mental health. My sister, who's bipolar, my father's suffered from depression, just being around it all the time and seeing and feeling so helpless that I can't help. But knowing that there's so many people out there who are struggling that could really benefit from this experience. And so that was something that was so important to me before I left to come to Mexico. I had been working at a treatment center for addictions and mental health. It was a holistic treatment center because that's where I really saw my life going after being a paramedic. I wanted to work in mental health, wanted to work in preventative health, and I wanted to help support people who were struggling with their emotions and being able to have a better quality of life. Like I said, I've seen my family struggle a lot and I haven't been able to help them. So I knew intuitively in the experience that this was going to become my life path. that I was being shown this medicine for a reason, that this medicine literally met me on the beach through this man who, ironically, I had sent an email through my health and wellness blog email, which I typically wouldn't do, but everything just kind of unveiled itself like breadcrumbs in my path. And so I found psychedelics for myself. After that experience, I left, I biked back into town. I went for dinner by myself and I felt so different. And every single day after that, I'm getting goosebumps as I tell you guys this story. I have not lost that feeling. I've only become more and more of that version of me. It helped me to step into who I truly am, my authentic self. It helped me to connect with myself in a relationship, to understand that I don't need somebody outside of myself to feel loved, to feel validated, that I can give myself all of those things. But all that we do is we feel guilt and shame and we beat ourselves up over every little thing. But that's not what we're meant to do. We're not meant to be so hard on ourselves. Because when you think about God and love or the universe or whatever you believe, it's all about love and forgiveness. And I think that when you think about, for example, coming from the church perspective, when you go to repent your sins, there's forgiveness. So if God can forgive you, then why can't you forgive yourself? And that's where we really get stuck in this victim mentality and this negative mindset, and like everything is happening to us, and and oh, I've done this and I can't believe I did that, and like I made this mistake, and I think we just go around in circles and we're in such a negative headspace that we don't recognize that we get to choose love. We get to choose love and forgiveness for ourselves. We get to release ourselves of the guilt, because being a human being is about making mistakes. There's no book. Well, yeah, sure, there's the Bible, but we're going to make mistakes because we have free will, and we're going to choose bad things sometimes, and we're going to be like, "Oh, yeah, that wasn't good. Let's choose differently." And the thing is, when we get in the patterns of attracting in the same things over and over again, sometimes it takes us a little bit longer to learn those lessons, but you just have to remember that it's all about our growth and expansion so that we can step into who we truly are. And those experiences and those decisions are all part of your path, and that there's no wrong path. You're doing the right things. And sometimes, well, I shouldn't say there's no wrong path. You can choose a difficult path. It's like opening up the door, being like, I wonder what's behind this door, and then watching your life path go in a very difficult direction. Or you can start to listen to those little, like, knowing inside of you, the intuition that's like, that's not the right way. That might be the easier way, but that's not the right way. You might have to go this way, and that's going to be a more difficult path, but that's going to be the path that's going to align you with who you are and what you're meant to do in this life. And we all have a purpose. And the craziest thing is, like, we all have a purpose, but we're all working together for the same reason. We're all helping each other to heal, to elevate, to come into this place of wholeness, to let go of all of the dense frequencies that we've been stuck in for a very long time, in this shadowy, dark place, so that we can elevate and be free of those feelings, of that experience, and to actually find joy and peace in life. Like, imagine you could feel those things. And that's what psilocybin does for people. So since that experience that I happened on the beach, I've completely, and it was so powerful to go through that experience and to know deeply in myself that there was nothing that was going to stop me from finding that path as my way forward. And so I sacrificed everything in my life. I let go of all of my material belongings other than my car and some things I stuffed into it. I got rid of my house. I let go of everything. And I decided that I was going to take a path moving to the west coast of Canada so that I could align myself with organizations that believed in this work, that were already working on legalization, and that I could be part of those organizations to be part of this movement. that is going to revolutionize mental health. And so I moved west, and it was the best decision I could have ever made because I started to work with an organization called Theracell. They were working on legal access for terminal patients with psilocybin. And we were the first group to get legal access for one of our cancer patients. And it was such a powerful moment. And it was a fight, but we did it. And it was exciting because it was setting a precedent. Now we're moving forward. More and more research has been done. There's so many documentaries out there on psychedelic therapy for mental health. For those of you guys who haven't explored the documentary called Waves of War, it's about Navy SEALs using psychedelic therapy for PTSD and showing how effective it is. I have now worked with over 300 clients, and I've watched almost 98% of those people have some level of transformation in their life. And the thing about psilocybin that I love, and especially when you're working in spaces with addictions, like alcoholism, those types of things, is it's non-addictive. It's not something that you seek over and over again. And if you start to notice that you meet people that are seeking psychedelics, then it's because they're not actually taking the information and applying it to their life. And that's where a lot of my work comes in. I help people after the experience to integrate all of the nuggets of information that come through in your experience, translate it into your real life. What do you want? Who do you want to become? What is it that you want to let go of? What do you want to know? How do you need clarity? And helping you to see, okay, that's what the mushroom is showing you. Now, how are you going to implement that into your life? And then I help people to reprogram their life in that way with the knowledge that we've gained from the psilocybin. And it's been so effective. So I'll have people who come for even just one experience, one ceremony with psilocybin, and are forever changed. And that's powerful. And if you want to get into like the science of why that is, well, it's actually rerouting neural pathways in the brain. So what that means is when we're stuck in loops of anxiety and depression and PTSD, our brains continuously fire in the same patterns over and over and over again. But when you break the pattern and you create a new pathway loop for your brain to travel on, you get to choose what you're going to program that new pathway with. So I like to compare it to defragmenting your computer. It's like you're taking all of your experiences that have been negatively impacting you, putting them in files with different meaning to them, and then you have a new path to move forward. Now you have a clear hard drive so that you can move forward with more clarity, more ease, and more understanding of yourself, your life, the things that have happened to you. It's pretty powerful when you have that level of insight. And so that can happen. Sometimes you might not have the hallucinatory experience because you might be somebody who control your environment, such as a first responder, a police officer, somebody who's gone to war, a veteran. Might not have the psychedelic experience, but the changes in the brain are completely obvious. So I had worked with a police officer. I have his testimonial, which I'll link up for you guys. His name was Danny. He suffered with PTSD for a long time. He had a 28-year career as a police officer, and he was at the point in his PTSD where he really just didn't see any reason to live anymore. He was about to leave his family. Like he just didn't want to put them through the symptoms of his PTSD anymore. So his colleague contacted me, and the two of them came and they worked with me for a week, and we did 3 sessions with psilocybin. And in those 3 sessions, he didn't have any psychedelic experience. He's like, some things maybe seemed brighter, the colors seemed more vivid, but the actual psychedelic insights didn't come through for him. But what did happen for him is over the course of the week, his behavior started to change. The way that he was showing up for himself, how he was communicating with himself. He was coming before, with being so hard on himself, beating himself up, self-loathing. And that all changed to self-compassion, a deeper understanding and gratitude for himself, understanding of what he'd been through and how hard that was and how difficult that was, and honoring himself. He reconnected with his roots in his life and the things that used to bring him joy, his creative version of him. He struggled with social anxiety and anger and outbursts, and he started to find a different connection with other people that was very different. It's almost like his mind completely opened up. I did a 4-year follow-up with Danny after doing those 3 sessions. He's never done a macrodose of psilocybin again, and he still claims that that saved his life. He's completely changed from that experience. And that's how powerful this is. They say it's the equivalent of 20 years of therapy. And so again, this is not for everybody, but if this is something that you have considered exploring, maybe you're struggling in your own way, I highly recommend that you do your due diligence, you do your research, you find someone that you can trust to guide you on this experience, and you consider that 4.5 hours of a ceremony is not that much when you compare it to a lifetime of suffering. So the fear is totally relevant. Most people come with anxiety. I certainly was very anxious about my first experience, but once I went into the experience and I understood how it could feel and how amazing it was and how supportive it felt and how loving it can be, I don't think my life would be the same had I have not taken the plunge, gotten over that fear, and just went for this experience, even though it wasn't something that was in my comfort zone. So sometimes we have to get uncomfortable to really change our life. And so this is one of those times. I run retreats starting in the spring. They're going to be monthly. I'm going to be hosting some retreats here in Canada. We're working on a project here with my partner, Rob, and I'm really excited about that. And I'm really hopeful and looking forward to the future of this. There's many places now that are starting to recognize this as a therapy in psychiatric medicine, such as Germany. And again, there's studies being done all over the world. You can link those up in my website, which I'm going to also link up for you guys, so you can see them for yourself. You can do your own research. You can find solace in knowing that this is legitimate medicine. This is not what we thought it was. This is not for social consumption. This is for personal introspective experience to help transform you, to help transform your emotions, to help alleviate you of the suffering, of the darkness and the pressure that we have been carrying as a human being. So thank you so much for listening. I'm going to link everything up for you guys if you want to explore this deeper. Please comment, like, and review this if you really got a lot from this, or send it to someone you know could benefit from it. I look forward to seeing you guys again, and have a great week.